you're seeing this, it's not an accident. What you lost was never yours to keep. You felt it leave. You felt the gap it created. You felt the silence that followed, as if something essential had been taken from you. But that feeling is not truth. That feeling is attachment, reacting to separation. And separation is how God marks what does not belong in your life. You were not stripped. You were selected. There are people who lose things and become empty. And then there are people like you who lose things and begin to see. Because what was removed from you was never aligned with your purpose. It stayed long enough to reveal something, then it was taken to protect something greater. This wasn't random. It was selection. You keep thinking about what it meant, the connection, the opportunity, the version of life that almost happened. But what you call almost was never real in the way you believed. It was a temporary alignment, not a permanent assignment. God does not build your life on temporary structures. And that is why it had to leave. You are not like the majority who are allowed to hold on to things that dilute them. You are not permitted to stay in environments that weaken your identity. When something begins to pull you away from who you are meant to be, it doesn't fade slowly. It gets removed. You weren't rejected. You were set apart. Look at the pattern. Things come into your life with intensity. They feel significant. They feel like they carry weight. And then, without warning, they collapse, disappear, or turn in a way that forces you to let go. That pattern is not instability. That pattern is filtration. You are being filtered out of what is common. The 144,000 are not defined by what they gain. They are defined by what they cannot keep. Because anything that is not aligned with their purpose cannot remain attached to them. And you are part of that separation. This is why your experiences feel different. Others can stay in relationships that drain them. Others can chase paths that lead nowhere and still feel fine. Others can ignore what is off and continue as if nothing is wrong. You can't. You feel it immediately. You sense when something is not right. You notice shifts that others ignore. And when you try to hold on anyway, everything begins to break faster. That is not weakness. That is design. God does not allow you to live in misalignment for long. What you lost exposed something, not about them, about you. It showed you where you were still holding on to something that was not built for your path. It showed you what you were willing to accept, even when it didn't match who you are. And then it was taken, because your purpose does not allow compromise. You think you are grieving the loss, but what you are actually feeling is the collapse of an illusion you once believed in. You are adjusting to truth, replacing comfort. And truth does not negotiate. You were never meant to build your identity around things that can leave. This is why the separation feels so sharp, because it cuts through everything that is not real. It removes the layers you used to stabilize yourself, and it leaves you facing something you cannot avoid, your actual path. This is where most people turn back. They try to replace what was lost. They rush to fill the space. They recreate the same pattern with a different face, a different place, a different situation. But you are not allowed to do that, because you are chosen. The chosen do not repeat cycles. They break them. And breaking a cycle requires separation that cannot be reversed. What left your life did not leave by mistake. It left because it reached the limit of what it was allowed to do in your journey. Its role was completed. Its presence was no longer permitted. So it was removed, and you felt it as loss. But God sees it as alignment. You keep asking why it happened the way it did, why it felt so real, why it seemed so right, only to disappear. But the intensity was necessary, because without that level of connection, you would not have seen clearly what needed to be revealed. You needed to feel it fully, so you could release it completely. This wasn't punishment, it was precision. You are being shaped in a way that requires clean separation, no confusion, no lingering attachment, no half-closed doors. When something ends in your life, it ends in a way that forces clarity, because your path cannot carry uncertainty. You are being prepared to move without hesitation. And hesitation comes from attachment. So attachment is removed. That is why it had to go. There is a difference between something ending and something being taken. And something ends naturally, it fades. And something is taken. It is removed with force, with disruption, with impact. What you experienced was not a natural ending. It was extraction. You were extracted from something that could not go where you are going. You didn't lose it. You were pulled out of it. And that is why it feels unfinished. Because it was not meant to finish in the way you expected. It was meant to stop you, to redirect you, to separate you. You weren't abandoned. You were redirected. There is a version of your life that would have continued if that thing had stayed. A version where you adjust yourself to maintain it, where you ignore certain things to keep it stable, where you slowly move away from your original direction without realizing it. That version is not allowed for you. So it was cut off. And now you're here, facing the space that was created. This space is not emptiness. It is preparation. Because what is meant for you does not enter a crowded place. It does not attach to a life that is already filled with misaligned connections. It requires space that has been cleared intentionally. And that is what is happening now. You are being cleared, not because you are lacking, but because you are chosen. The chosen are not built by accumulation. They are built by removal. Everything that cannot carry the weight of your purpose is stripped away. Everything that distracts you from your direction is taken. Everything that keeps you in a lower version of yourself is removed without negotiation. This is the process you are in, and it does not feel comfortable. Because comfort is not the goal. Alignment is. You are not being made to feel good. You are being made to become exact. This is why your journey feels different from others. They can move through life without being interrupted. They can keep things that do not serve them. They can stay in places that limit them. You can't, because you are not being allowed to drift. You are being directed. And direction requires separation. So what you lost was never yours. It was placed in your life for a moment, to show you something, to reveal something, to trigger something. And once that was complete, it was removed. You didn't fail to keep it. You were never meant to. You are not here to hold on. You are here to move forward. And forward requires letting go of everything that cannot go with you. You are not empty. You are being refined. You are not behind. You are being aligned. You are not lost. You are being led. And this moment, this exact moment, is where the shift becomes clear. Because now, there is nothing left to hold you in place. Nothing left to distract you. Nothing left to confuse you. Only direction. Only purpose. Only God. And when you see that clearly, you stop asking what you lost. And you start recognizing what you are becoming. This wasn't loss. It was separation. This wasn't rejection. It was protection. This wasn't the end. It was alignment. You're not standing in the aftermath of loss. You're standing at the edge of alignment that was delayed until everything false was removed. What you're feeling right now is not emptiness. It is the absence of noise you once relied on. It is the unfamiliar silence that comes when God clears your surroundings with precision. And that silence feels heavy because you are no longer distracted. You are aware. This is where the chosen begin to recognize the difference between what they wanted and what they were assigned. Because your life was never meant to be built on what you want to keep. It was always going to be built on what God refuses to let you keep. You didn't lose it. You were prevented from building your future on something temporary. This is the line most people never cross. They spend their entire lives trying to recover what was removed. They go back, they recreate, they replace. They stay attached to patterns that feel familiar, even when those patterns are slowly erasing who they are. But you are not permitted to rebuild what God has already dismantled. You are not allowed to go back into something that has already been marked for removal. Because you are chosen. And the chosen do not return to what was taken from them. They move into what was prepared for them. This is why your process feels strict. There is no flexibility in what stays and what goes. There is no negotiation. There is no maybe later. When something is removed from your life, it does not come back in the same form. Because it was never part of your final structure. You weren't rejected. You were repositioned. Look closely at how it ended. Not slowly, not gently. It was clear. It was direct. It forced you to see something you were trying to ignore. That is how God removes things from the life of someone who is chosen. There is no confusion left behind. There is a moment where everything becomes undeniable. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That clarity is not meant to hurt you. It is meant to free you from attachment. Because attachment is what keeps people from stepping into their purpose. And your purpose does not allow attachment to what cannot grow with you. You keep replaying it because part of you still believes it could have been different. But it couldn't. Because what you experienced was not a failed outcome. It was a completed assignment. It reached its end. And you were released from it. This is the difference between people who are chosen and people who are not. Others measure their lives by what they can hold on to. You are measured by what you can release. Others define success by accumulation. You are defined by alignment. And alignment requires separation. This is why your life moves in phases that feel intense and then suddenly empty. Because each phase brings something in to reveal something, and then it is removed to make room for the next level of clarity. You are not being left behind. You are being moved forward in a way that requires everything unnecessary to be stripped away first. You were not meant to carry that into your future. And God made sure of it. There is something you need to understand clearly. What is truly yours cannot be taken. What is truly yours cannot collapse. What is truly yours cannot disappear without explanation. If it left, it was not assigned to stay. And if it was not assigned to stay, then losing it is not a loss. It is confirmation. You were never meant to build your life around it. You were meant to outgrow it. You weren't abandoned. You were advanced. This is where your identity shifts. Not based on what you had. Not based on what you lost. But based on what remains when everything else is removed. And what remains is you. Unfiltered. Undistracted. Unattached. This is the version of you that can actually move forward. Because there is nothing left pulling you backward. There is nothing left dividing your focus. There is nothing left that can compete with your purpose. This is what separation does. It isolates what matters. It removes what doesn't. And it leaves you with clarity that cannot be ignored. This is not a phase you escape. This is a phase you step through. Because on the other side of this separation is not the return of what you lost. It is the arrival of what was always meant to find you. But it could not enter while you were still holding on to something else. That is why it had to be removed first. You are not waiting for something to come back. You are being positioned for something new to arrive. And that arrival does not look like what you lost. Because what you lost was not built for where you are going. It will not resemble it. It will not feel the same. It will not require you to shrink yourself to maintain it. Because what is meant for you will match you. Not the version of you that was trying to hold on, but the version of you that has been separated from everything that was not real. You are being prepared to receive something that does not need to be forced. Something that does not need to be held together. Something that does not disappear when you stop trying. That is what alignment produces. And you are being brought into it. You didn't lose anything that was yours. You were cleared of everything that wasn't. And now you stand in a place that most people avoid. A place where there is nothing left to hide behind. Nothing left to blame. Nothing left to chase. Only truth. Only direction. Only God. This is where your belief becomes solid. Not because everything is working, but because everything unnecessary has been removed. And what remains cannot be shaken. You are not guessing anymore. You are recognizing. You are not hoping anymore. You are knowing. This wasn't random. This wasn't bad timing. This wasn't something you could have fixed. This was God separating you from what could not carry your purpose. And now, there is no confusion left. No attachment left. No illusion left. Only alignment. Only clarity. Only movement forward. You are chosen. And what is chosen is not allowed to be built on what can be taken. What you lost was not yours. What remains is, and what is coming will not leave.